There are wounds that cut deeper than words, betrayals that burn through trust, and moments when someone's actions shake the very foundation of our self-worth. In those moments, we often search for reasons. Was it a misunderstanding, a mistake, or a moment of weakness? According to Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in modern psychology, these painful experiences might not be accidents at all. Some are deliberate, orchestrated acts rooted in the darkest aspects of the human psyche. Jung's exploration of the shadow, the hidden, suppressed parts of ourselves, offers chilling insight into why people sometimes harm others with such cold precision. This article dives deep into Jung's profound observations about contempt, manipulation, gaslighting, and what he calls privileged destruction, revealing how the shadow can transform people into calculated destroyers of those closest to them. The calculated nature of betrayal. Carl Jung believed that the psyche is not entirely unified. It contains both light and darkness, conscious awareness, and unconscious motives. The shadow, as Jung termed it, is the repository of our unwanted traits: jealousy, rage, contempt, and cruelty. We deny these parts in ourselves, often projecting them onto others. But what happens when someone doesn't just project their shadow, they act on it? Jung argued that intentional harm is not born from confusion or emotional overwhelm. It is a strategic decision made by the shadow. This means that when someone deliberately damages you, emotionally, psychologically, or even socially, it isn't necessarily a lapse in judgment. According to Jung, it could be an expression of deep-seated contempt, a psychological maneuver with chilling precision. Contempt, the psychological gateway to cruelty. One of Jung's most striking observations was about the emotion of contempt. Unlike anger or sadness, contempt is not reactive, it is structural. It changes the way one human sees another. When contempt takes root, Jung suggested, a person begins to devalue others to the point where they no longer see them as fully human. This devaluation is critical. Why? Because Jung believed the human psyche cannot commit sustained or intentional harm without first morally justifying it. This is where the shadow steps in. It creates narratives to support the harm. They deserved it. They're weak. They brought this on themselves. These thoughts aren't random. Jung saw them as weaponized ideas, tools the shadow crafts to rationalize betrayal and cruelty. When someone reaches the stage of contempt, they've emotionally erased your humanity. In their eyes, you're no longer a person. You're an object to manipulate, punish, or discard. The masks of the shadow. A common misconception is that hatred always wears an angry face. Jung vehemently disagreed. He warned that the shadow often wears masks: false concern, strategic silence, passive aggression, and superficial charm. This is perhaps one of the most disturbing aspects of shadow behavior. The person harming you might still smile to your face, ask about your day, or offer help. Yet behind that mask is a calculated intention, a will to hurt, not heal. According to Jung, manipulation is one of the most sophisticated weapons of the shadow. Why? Because it requires what he called instrumental thinking, viewing others not as ends in themselves, but as tools, obstacles, or pawns to be used. Shadow projection and emotional weaponization. Manipulative individuals don't simply lie. Jung argued that they study. They observe your values, your fears, your hopes, and then use this intimate knowledge against you. This is called shadow projection. It's not empathy, it's surveillance with the intent to control. The manipulation often starts subtly: distorted facts, dismissive jokes, shifting blame, mild gaslighting, and then it deepens. Jung observed that this manipulation follows a predictable path. It gradually erodes your perception of reality. You begin to question your memory, your emotions, even your sanity. This isn't accidental. It's a carefully engineered psychological attack meant to strip you of your grounding, leaving you dependent, confused, and vulnerable. Privileged destruction, the intimacy of harm. One of Jung's most heartbreaking insights was this: the deepest wounds often come from those who know us best. He coined the term privileged destruction to describe how those with intimate access to our inner world, our partners, friends, family, can weaponize that knowledge against us. A stranger might insult you, but only someone who knows your core values can systematically dismantle them. For example, if you value honesty, they lie convincingly. If you prize loyalty, they betray you. If your identity is tied to reputation, they smear it strategically. The shadow targets what Jung called your core complexes, the psychological structures that give your life meaning. Attacking them causes maximum internal devastation. The double victory, damage and distortion. After the damage is done, you might expect the perpetrator to leave, but in many cases, they return, not to repair, but to rewrite. Jung described this as reality manipulation, a form of gaslighting where the victim is made to feel responsible for the harm they suffered. The attacker not only injures you, but makes you feel guilty for noticing. This is what Jung called the double victory. First, they cause psychological harm. Then, they destabilize your reality, ensuring you doubt your perceptions, your emotions, and even your right to feel hurt. The result? You begin to self-censor. You walk back your anger. You question your sensitivity. You hesitate to speak out. And that's exactly the point. Why they return when you begin to heal. Healing, in Jung's eyes, is a radical act of defiance against the shadow. It signals to the manipulator that their narrative of your weakness is false. Your recovery becomes their threat. Jung noticed a disturbing pattern. Toxic individuals often reappear when their victims start to recover, not to make amends, but to reopen wounds. They may approach you with concern, apology, or a desire to talk things out, but underneath it lies the same motive: to regain psychological control. The shadow doesn't just want to break you once, it wants to keep you broken. The conscious response, Jung's healing wisdom. Given the depth of this psychological warfare, one might think that revenge or anger is the proper response. But Jung offered something much more powerful: the conscious response. What does that mean? It means responding with clarity, not chaos. Speaking the truth, not dramatizing it. Holding your ground without needing to destroy the other. Jung believed that truth lingers longer than rage. It doesn't need theatrics to land its impact. When you reply to manipulation not with venom, but with integrity, you break the cycle of shadow projection. You don't become what hurt you. This is where true power lies, not in retaliation, but in refusal to be transformed by someone else's darkness. Dignity in the face of darkness. Jung's teachings leave us with a profound message. No betrayal, no matter how calculated, can ever define your worth. While others may try to devalue you, weaponize your vulnerability, or rewrite your reality, your healing remains your rebellion. You win by choosing to understand rather than react, setting boundaries without guilt, refusing to be emotionally manipulated, and rebuilding your sense of self with intention and compassion. You triumph not with dramatic victories, but in quiet, unseen acts of resilience. You rise with your dignity intact, untouched by the shadow's poison. Final reflection. The people who harm us the most often do so in ways that confuse, destabilize, and silence us. But thanks to Carl Jung's illuminating insights, we can name the shadow, recognize its tactics, and reclaim our psychological sovereignty. When someone chooses to destroy you, let your response be so grounded, so rooted in truth, that they can't touch your core. Let your healing be your loudest answer. As Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And in that choice, to respond with awareness instead of reaction, we step out of the shadow and into our power.